Hi, this is Kaelen Ohm, and you're listening to Monday Morning
Great.
Critic.
Kaelen, I have to say, so I'm looking at your life, and I just, some people have a tough time being just an actor or being just a musician. How the heck have you juggled both this whole time, right? So we're talking Vancouver Film School, we're talking this great drummer early, like what is like, how does this all come to be? Like I can't imagine juggling, and I'm not even throwing in director and cinematographer, and like I'm throwing in like you've kind of, and it's just more than that. But it's like how are you juggling all these balls at the same time?
Um, it's been really natural for me, to be honest. I think this work can be so seasonal, as actors, especially. We might be on a job for 1 month and then not for 6 months and then for 9 months and not for 3 years,
Yeah,
with the
good point.
pandemic.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think that it's really just I've been listening a lot over the past few years, especially juggling my music project Amara and acting, my acting career, and just wanting to do those things fairly seriously and just having to listen to, okay, there's a break coming. I need to carve out this time now to make a record because if I sit and I wait, then I'm going to miss that window. So I think doing as many little things as I've done over time has just kind of been a means for following interests. But film and music have been both two worlds that have fascinated me kind of from every angle.
yeah.
And so um, I've been lucky that I've been able to step in and learn many different things and be okay at them. I don't think I'm a master at any of the things that I do, and I don't know if I ever will be. And some people are sort of wired that way, I think, to pick one thing and to be so obsessed with it that that's all that they can spend their time doing. And it's just not how I'm built. And I've come to kind of accept that over time. Acting is one thing that I think it's so multifaceted that mastery of that craft, to even understand that, is a whole path on its own. But that's one thing that I'm still looking towards for myself. But I hope that
Mm.
answers your question.
No, it's a great answer. Yeah, it's a great answer. What's your take on like music composition, composers, film scores? Is that something like you have an interest in, or is it kind of, because I'm thinking, because I'm trying to think of like everything you've done in your life. Is that something that interests you?
Yeah, absolutely. My own music has always been informed by cinema.
Yeah.
I love cinematic music. I think when I'm writing music, I'm always thinking about the video I would make with it, and it would be an absolute dream to compose or like co-compose a score for a film. And I do hope I get to do that. I've thought of it for sure.
So a completely unfair question, but I have to ask it. And I'm going to ask you to name one. If you want to name multiple, fine. Early influences in music and acting.
Hmm. Um, okay, music and acting. I would say music-wise, ooh, I'm going back a ways here, but I grew up listening to a lot of Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell. My parents were kind of that
Mm,
hippie
mm.
era of music, and there was always vinyl playing in our house and radio playing in our house. And it's funny, Ani DeFranco was like someone I grew up listening to a lot when I was a dancer. We would all of our contemporary pieces would be to that.
Mm.
But I think I really started getting super inspired to play music. Like Warpaint, the LA band Warpaint, is
Hmm.
kind of the reason I started playing electric guitar.
Wow.
um, yeah, my uh, an old one of my dear friends who was an ex-partner of mine, he was totally obsessed with indie music and also played in bands, and it had been on my mind for a long time. And one day I just picked up his Fender Jaguar and turned the reverb up all the way on the amp and was like, oh, this is okay. I understand why, and I sort of see a way forward for myself, not being a technically trained musician at all. Like, I played piano as a kid a little bit, but there was this video for the Warpaint song Elephants that came out, and they're all on stage in rad vintage clothes, and it's all slow motion. And it was just like this awakening for me of just like, who are these women? And they're playing guitar in a way that feels like maybe I could do. And I think bands like that and Panda Bear and um, Kurt Vile and the OCs, like that whole surge of indie bands coming out of the States around 2009 was kind of like a massive pull for me to start playing in bands myself.
Hearing you as a female talk about, music, my sister's good friend growing up for a while was a guitarist in Smashing Pumpkins. So I'm thinking of like when you're talking about guitars, I'm thinking and thinking, why did I read, Kaelen, that I thought your drums were a big part? Is that my bad, or I thought you were a
No, that was one of my first bands. Was an all-girl garage punk band from Calgary, Alberta, called the
mm,
Shrapnels. And Calgary has a really, or at least had, haven't lived there for some years, but has a really beautiful indie music scene
right?
where, there for a long time living there, everyone could be in 4 or 5 bands at a time, and we'd play multiple gigs during the week at different bars there. And there's a local festival called Sled Island that brought in all those bands I mentioned, and we were able to open for some of those bands. So yeah, I was playing in that band as drums and then joining other bands as a guitarist. And then I sort of started touring quite a bit in, can't remember what year it was, but it was a few years into just having a bunch of projects, just started to take it a little more seriously.
I have no idea how somebody can do the drums and guitar. I just feel like I don't know. I can't do one instrument, never mind like two. Like, I mean, and be very, very, very proficient and great at it. So, uh,
I mean, enough that I can get my ideas out, but I
yeah,
don't know.
I was listening to an awesome song today. Black Moon is an awesome song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm like, I want to talk to her about From, and then I'm like, I almost feel like this interview could be for your sanity. It won't be, but like just talking about your music career could be like a 3 hour interview. And I'm just
Oh,
going through all these wonderful songs, and it's like I could listen to this. Like this is great. Like I guess for me, the great part about interviews is I'm introduced to people's something I may have missed along the way, but I'm sure glad our paths crossed because you're a really, really talented musician. So that's awesome.
thank you so much. Black Moon was actually the first song I ever wrote for my project Amara, which is the only music project I'm actively a part of now. And that song was actually written at the news of Philip Seymour Hoffman's death. He was not someone I knew personally, but was, you asked for early film influences, like him as an actor. Um, is definitely one of those people. And for some reason, the news of his passing just hit me at a certain moment, and I had just gotten home from tour and was feeling like I need to get back into my own stuff, and that song just kind of poured out and became the birth of that project Amara, actually.
Oh, how great is that? Now I have to like the song even more because I love Philip Seymour Hoffman. And like I feel like Kaelen, his name comes up in interviews more than anybody's. Like, I mean, people that have
Hmm.
worked with him. And it's like you wonder to this day, like how what he would have been like. I mean, same thing, I guess, suppose with River Phoenix too. But Philip Seymour Hoffman was a plus actor. I mean, people talk about A actor, people talk A list or whatever. He might have been beyond A list. Like whatever is on the frontier beyond A list, Philip Seymour Hoffman was the mayor of that area because. And the fact
Hmm.
that you wrote a song because he meant so much, was it that his work meant so much to you, Kaelen? Is that part of it?
It's interesting. I think that I just had so much respect for him as an actor, and again, though I never worked with him or knew him
Right, right,
personally, there's just
right.
an energy to his work that just feels so deep and so layered and so disciplined and so reverent. And um, as much as I'm coming into an acting career through film, and I have deep respect for theater, and I'm starting to um, work with mentors in that world a little more now because I would love to work on stage. But I look to actors like that who just they are in the craft, and they have a craft, and they're mastering that craft. And for me, it's taken so many years also because I do all these different things to even understand what that is. And now that I understand what it is and how much it takes, I look at artists like that and just like bow to
Yeah.
them because it's just, and just I think I don't know, but I look at someone like him sort of being born with that innate understanding of that work, and just having such immense force and power to bring it to storytelling in the way that he did. And it's just so selfless. You know, you
Yeah.
look at everything from like Capote to The Master to Boogie Nights, and it just every time it just blows my mind. It's so
Great.
honest and so heart-wrenchingly beautiful.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. So let me ask you this. Before we get into your acting career, talk about you mentioned it a few times, but for those listening, because there's going to be a ton of From fans that watch this, but explain Amara to those people. Like I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Just explain what it is, how it came to be, and what it means to you.
Well, Amara is my solo music project. I've sort of always coined it as ethereal dream pop, sort of in the indie shoegaze realm, and it's always changing and shifting. But Amara is actually my middle name.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I started that project while touring with a band full time, and just really felt like I was sort of a session player in that band when I first started, and was just feeling a need to kind of look into my own musical voice and keep developing it in a really autonomous way. And I'm actually just about to start rolling out a first official full length record after 2 EP releases the last few years, and first single comes out on May 23rd, so really soon.
Nice. So you have to be
Yeah.
super psyched. You have some great things going on in the acting career. You have some great things going on in the music career. So life is good, Kaelen, right now, right?
Yeah, it's a big year of releasing stuff that's been created over the last couple of years. This record's actually been done since November 21st, and then we obviously shot season 2 of From last year, and I've also got a feature film coming out this year that was shot way back in 2021. So it just feels like a lot of seeds that were planted are finally blooming, which is really
Well,
exciting.
and I'm sure you've poured your heart into that. So I mean, um, so like like I had to. There's so much I want to ask you, but I'll condense it a little bit. One of your entries into in your filmography is the Vancouver Film School. Do you feel like that played a part as into who you are as an actor today? Do you feel like that was an intricate part? Do you think you would have been where you are acting wise without it?
Definitely not, and not necessarily in a direct way. But Vancouver Film School was a choice I made to go into film production, to have an education in film production. Um, I always knew I wanted to be an actor, and I grew up dancing. And when I was 15, I was in a ski accident and had a pretty severe spinal injury. And
Hmm.
I think my plan was, okay, well, I want to be an actor, but I know that if something happens to me physically, that might not work out. And so
Hmm.
why don't I go to
Hmm.
film school? I'll learn how to make movies, and then I'll enter from the back door in a sense. I think I also knew about myself that um, it might work better for me to do that than to try and just start auditioning. And I don't know why, it was just kind of a feeling. But instead of going to university for 4 years where you don't really get to hold a camera until year 3 or so, I went to this very intensive 1 year program that had me behind a camera on the first day. And I started working as a PA on X-Men 3, which was a huge Hollywood film shooting in
Wow.
Vancouver. And that was like overlapping finishing high school. And I was a very keen PA in that I was always asking to be by Video Village so I could watch the actors. Um, and that was just sort of, it was always my intention to be in positions like that so that I could watch. That's just how I learn, is by watching people. I've
Sure.
always been
Sure.
a super keen observer, and it's how I learn. It's how I get ideas. So I got to watch Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman and Elliot Page work, and it was really amazing. And from there, I ended up becoming an editor for ski movies out in Alberta, and started creating my own fashion films and dance films and music videos. And sometimes I put myself in music videos. And I think, so that I don't take a whole day to answer your question, it's been everything for me, because it took me a long time to actually pursue acting. I was, in my late 20s when I actually started. It was like 6 years ago that I started pursuing acting. But when I began, I knew I had been on most roles in a film set. I'd been a cinematographer, a cam op, a script supervisor, producer, director, and I knew all the equipment. I sort of knew the flow of the set. And I think a lot of actors that start, especially who come from theater, it's this whole ecosystem and structure that you have to get to know. And I already knew that, so that really helped me in just kind of focusing on the craft itself. So yeah, doing that just kind of gave me a full spectrum view into making movies, reality shows, music videos, single crew member corporate documentaries, which I did for many years. Just like, yeah, just in a way now that as an actor, I feel totally ready to produce and direct as well. So it's just been a really informative way for me to like start building a career that allows me to play in all the different areas that I'm passionate about.
Wow. Well, did you say, just so I understand, did you say you were a PA on X-Men 3 while you were rapping high school in that ballpark? Is that what you said?
Rapping film school.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
impressive. Wow.
Actually, a few of us had that. I remember one of my classmates was working nights on a big Marvel movie and then coming to school during the day. I think my job only overlapped barely at the end. And then we were shooting nights for like 6 or 7 weeks or something before Christmas. But it was really cool that's the great thing about of school like that is you go in, you're like fast paced in most roles that you want to try, and then you can kind of start working on a set if you want to.
That's pretty impressive. Talk
It's
about a work
fast.
ethic. Yeah, talk about a work
Yeah,
ethic.
that's
Jesus. So before we hop into From, which is a show that certainly taps into your fears, Kaelen, is there a fear that you have just in life? So I'll give you an example. So
mm,
for me, like around the house, I can't do heights. Like for me, I can't. I just no matter what I tell myself, I am beyond frightened. Beyond frightened. Maybe snakes a close second. How about for you? Is there a fear you have? I mean, you certainly attack life like not many people I've spoken to before. But is there
mm.
something that scares you? Is there something that you have a fear of?
um I mean, I could go into a therapy session with you, but I think I think I mean, I don't even want to say this in a place that people are going to hear me, but home invasion has always been just like one of those things. I have nightmares about it
Yeah.
sometimes, and like nightmares where I end up with like sleep paralysis. And then I have to wake up and like slowly realize that I was dreaming, and it's just, I don't know, there's something about I had a really, really terrible nightmare when I was a teenager in high school that I woke up in the dream. So when I actually woke up, it took me, I don't know how long, like 30 minutes to realize that I was waking up after the dream that I woke up in. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
So,
right. I got you. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So what had happened, I was fully convinced was happening in my house because in my dream, I was in my bed and woke up in my bed. And then when I woke up in my bed, I had to realize like, okay, my sister's okay. No one's in the house. It's night. It's time to get up and get ready for school. And just like the terror in my body from that. Um, so anyway, I think that one is definitely pretty high on my list because I had a dream about it while we were I had a dream similar while we were shooting From. It's terrifying.
Wow. No, that's your honesty is certainly appreciated. Uh, there is one thing I wanted to say before we get into From. I love Hell on Wheels. Like it's one of my favorite shows. It's one of the
Oh,
most
cool.
underrated shows of all time. Could they have come up with a better name for your character,
Oh
please?
my God.
Like, are you for those listening? And Kaelen, hope you don't mind me saying this. Kalen's character was quote unquote cute whore. Like, really? Like, can we just like? Were they all out of like ethical names, like just cute woman, or like lady in the whatever. Like you have to come. I don't know. I just and it's not just you. I've had other actors where it's like fat guy by the bar. Like really, like
Yeah.
that's the best we got. And I
Yeah.
get why they do it because when people are watching the episode, they want to reference it. But I will say though, absolutely wonderful, very underrated show. One of the best shows of all time. Hell on Wheels.
That was my first acting job too.
Wow.
It was my first
Wow.
acting role, and I had one word line, and they cut it in the edit, which is fine. I still got to be there on camera, and it was awesome. Yeah,
That's
super cool
awesome.
show to work on. Beautiful.
So, I'm gonna say this. I love The Walking Dead. I have never seen anything like this from fandom, right? So I belong to some really cool Facebook groups, some really cool Reddit groups. I'm gonna say after The Walking Dead or right with The Walking Dead, this show is taking people by storm. The only thing and let me go back to IMDb again. Like I feel it took me forever to find your character's name, and your character has a huge part in season 2. It's Mary, correct?
Marielle.
Yeah, Samira. So it's like I was like, it's not listed on IMDb, it's not like a spoiler, so I don't know why they wouldn't list it. So I don't know. I get like I was like, I'm pretty sure I know her name because it's a huge part. But like, did you find that like I don't know why her name was hidden. I feel like was it like a
Well, I know I can only guess why, and that would be that um, nobody knew. I imagine it will get updated as the season continues to
gotcha,
air.
gotcha.
But had they put that on when they announced season 2 cast, it would have been a spoiler that Marielle shows up because Marielle's mentioned in season
Oh,
1.
that's right. She is. Oh, you are right. You are right. Yes,
Yeah.
I stand corrected. I'm like, well, what the heck? Yeah, I absolutely get that. Is it tough coming into a show? Let me ask this first. Were you did you watch season 1 before you received the part? Did you know anything about the show?
Yeah, I started watching the first season feverishly when I knew I was getting a call back. I had
Gotcha.
actually auditioned for season 1, so when it came, I was like, I feel like I know this show. And I
Yeah.
looked back in my email and remembered a little bit about it, but I hadn't watched it. So I started watching as much as I could before I had my call back. And by the time we went to camera, I had seen the first season.
Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic entrance that you have because I was with my wife. I'm like, I know who this is. I know it. And Kaelen, you're going to be like, yeah, right. I'm sure he did. I swear
No,
to
I
God,
get it.
medical backgrounds. I'm sure there's a ton of from friends from fans that probably put it together. But I know who this is. I know who it is. And when it finally happens, it's like such a jaw-dropping moment. And I want to break it down in a second. But Chloe is coming on next week. Talk about your relationship on and off camera with Chloe, who plays Kristi.
Well, Chloe's a gem of a human,
Yeah,
and it was as soon as I was cast, I think I had like 36 hours to pack up my house in LA and get to Halifax and get, she was wondering who is being cast, who's being cast. I need to know, and we ended up having a FaceTime as soon as that news was known to both of us, and just very clear that this was a beautiful, big-hearted, passionate person that was going to be a lot of fun to work with. And Chloe and I actually ended up being neighbors while shooting the show, so we spent a lot of time, like sort of prepping as much as we could before the days, and just it was a really, yeah, just both of us were very committed to this relationship reading. Like we knew that people were sort of some of the fans were anticipating that I was on the bus. So yeah, I think that it was important for both of us for it to work. And I think it's insofar as I know, it's working on screen. You never know because sometimes your experience in the moment, it translates very differently. But from everything I've seen, it's lovely, and so far we've heard good things. So fingers crossed that continues.
no,
But it's intense. This season's very intense, so it's
no,
not all
it's awesome. It's awesome, and
rainbows.
yeah, it's awesome. And I want to break it down in a second. But is there pressure on your end coming in? By the way, congratulations for series regular. I'm so happy for you for that. That's a great thing,
Thank
right?
you.
Yep. Is
Yeah,
there
totally.
is there pressure not being in a show in season one and like entering the show as it's already been, progressing? Is that pressure for you, Kaelen? Or are you like, you know what, I'll do what they ask me. I'll trust in my talent. How do you view that?
Um, there's a few things I could say about that. I had never joined a show after, I had never joined an established show like that, and especially not an established cast like that. There's, the hashtag Fromily is a very real thing. And, but I immediately knew when I met everyone, which I think was the first night I was there. I met a large number of the cast, and it's just such a beautiful group of humans, and everyone is so kind and so welcoming. And I had really been wanting to have an experience like this, just to have a big ensemble cast that was, um, yeah, who were friends and had great camaraderie on and off camera, and that was this. So it immediately sort of eased any tension or nervousness about needing to do a certain thing. I think it was evident, as soon as I walked on set too, that it was a very open, collaborative space. And our director, Jack Bender, it's just been such a gift to work with him and see him operate. He's such an actor's director. He was an actor, which is just an incredible gift.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what's beautiful also about this show is that as a newcomer into this town, you are a newcomer. Like, all of us who arrived on the bus, it was part of our process and our journey to start to um, become a part of this community. And so that was happening in real time, which was kind of
Oh yeah, I
amazing.
get it.
So,
Yeah, I get it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it
yeah, I get
really,
it. Yeah.
it worked that way, where like all of that nervousness and unfamiliarity is kind of written into the script. So
Yeah.
it helped, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Poor, poor,
I'm sort of going on and on, but
no,
that's
I love it. I love it. I love it. Poor Kenny though, huh? Kaelen, this poor guy can't catch a break. He loses his dad because Sarah's whatever, but then he thinks he has this, Kristi's a wonderful person on the show. You're like, wow, she's just this great person. And out of nowhere, in this crazy place in the middle of, at this point, nobody knows anything. The only person that knows someone comes back. Like, are you kidding me? Like, poor Kenny cannot catch a break on this show, Kaelen.
yeah. No, it's funny because I'm gathering that, uh, Ricky, he is an incredible actor and just
Awesome. Awesome.
plays Kenny so well, and so it's so hard not to just want to root for Kenny immediately. And it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. And um, I knew that my character would be polarizing, and to say the least, and I will see what happens. But I hope Kenny does catch a break and, you know, has some good
Yeah.
news coming his way soon. Any of us, for that matter, on this show. It's
Yeah. A few more questions, Kaelen. Thank you so much. You're such an awesome guest, and I appreciate you giving
oh,
me all
my
this time.
pleasure. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
This place, it's like, and I've said this to all the guests that have been on from, I tell you, I don't know what's worse. Like, you're in this place from hell, and then it's like at night, it gets even worse, which you think is impossible, but it's not. Like, it's horrible. Like, I can't imagine a place like this. Like, you think, like, when you go home, you kind of can unwind. Nope. And then you have these convincing like monsters at night. I can't think of a worse place to be, Kaelen. I really can't.
Yeah, this show is pretty unruly that way. And it's not only because of the horror element, but um, just John Griffin has written such complex, multidimensional characters, which I think is why the show is so amazing, especially in the horror genre. It doesn't just sort of rely on tropes to get by. It's got some serious character development and
For
serious
sure.
relationships and people who have deep pasts and obstacles they're trying to overcome. And this town only exacerbates all of that. So I think also what you see are like people learning that eventually they have to trust each other and lean on each other in order to get by. And that's kind of just life. So You
Yeah.
could kind of, I feel like I was thinking about it earlier, like you could remove the horror element to the show and still have a great show,
Big time. Big time.
which
Yeah.
I love about it, you know?
Yep. And I was talking about Kenny earlier, but I have to say, I kind of sympathize with Mary too, because I feel like, she doesn't know what happened to Chris. She doesn't know what's going on. Like, and then she's
Yeah.
introduced to this crazy scenario that, and she thinks Christy's joined a cult. Like, there's so much this poor girl has gone through. And by the way, you are absolute fire and kick ass in your first 3 episodes in season. Well, I'm on season. I have season up to season 6. You've been effing great. So I wanted to say that before this got out. Like, you've been just, not only have you fit in, you've just like excelled at a level that I'm so happy to be able to be a part of.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Um, what was your question?
No, my question is that, like, I sympathize with Kenny.
Melting in your
Yeah,
compliments.
yeah. Like I sympathize with Kenny, but then I'm realizing, Jesus, Christy's been through a lot.
Oh,
But sure,
yeah.
but Mary's not getting the scope of what she's about to get into. She thinks Chrissy just
No.
jetted, and I wonder sometimes. It reminds me a little bit of that show on HBO. I can't think of it now. It's Justin Theroux. Shit, I can't remember what the name of the show is. But anyways, it was a show that, like, I wonder. I hope one day, one episode, they look back. So, like, I wonder
Mm,
when they show, like, when Christy just is gone, like what
right.
Mary's, like, time was with Christy's parents and how they handled that loss and what happened. Like, it'd be nice to see the loss on the outside of that town. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a nice perspective. But I really like, knowing that we were going to speak today. I really feel like Mary has gone through quite a bit. Like, and to then see her on this bus in this town that she can't get out of, like, that is so surreal. I can't. You talk about nightmares. We talked earlier, Kaelen, about fears. To me, this is the biggest nightmare you can have as a human being.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Having your loved one disappear all of a sudden and not know if they're safe, not know if they just decided they were leaving without a conversation, really traumatizing stuff. And I think, you know, Marielle has to build her empathy from the audience by them getting to know her. And right now, she's just a person who's coming in, and she's just been a name so far. No one knows what her sensitivities are, what her struggles are. And obviously, we saw so much of what Kenny went through in season 1, and it's natural that people are going to want to root for him. And, um, I won't say too much about dynamically where the triangle goes, if anywhere, but um, absolutely from my relationship with Marielle, like, this is someone who has been through hell in her own right out in the
Mm.
world, having her fiance disappear from her life and having no idea where she went, and where she was going is found out later in the season. And you sort of start to get to know more the consequences of all of that happening to her, and it's very real stuff. So I think in time, I can be patient for everyone to empathize with her, but I think what is true about the show is that it does not discriminate who is suffering.
that that is a very accurate statement. Kaelen, the last thing I will say is, like, that, I feel like this reminds me a little bit, your character, and Christy. It reminds me a little bit. You remember the Tom Hanks movie Castaway, where
Hmm.
everyone thinks he's gone
Am I
forever?
Wilson? No, I'm
No,
kidding.
you're not Wilson. I think you would be, no, because Christy would be Tom Hanks, so you would be Helen Hunt's character. But, like,
Okay.
yeah, but I feel like you think they're gone, and it's like you have all the reason to think they're gone, and then they show back up again, and it's like you've in your mind you've convinced yourself you're dealing with the fact that they're gone, the loss, and then boom, there they are right in front of you. In those first couple episodes of season 2, I don't know, I love it. I'm a big fan. I don't know, I'm big time geeking for from and from what you've done, Kaelen. So
Oh, thank you. I love it. It's so nice to have people like you to watch a show and appreciate it the way that you do. It's like any show, regardless of its success, is years in the making with so much hard work behind it. And for anyone to be able to see that and appreciate it, it's like it's such a gift.
Kaelen, throw out your any social media information you want to do, any projects you have around the corner, anything about the wonderful things you're doing with music. Kaelen, throw anything out there you want, and I hope people really respond to it.
Thanks. Yeah, well, episode 2 is on this Sunday. I don't know if this will be up before then, but
It will be. I'll get it out there. Yep.
cool, cool. Yeah, my music project Amara has a first single from my LP full length album called Child of Venus, which the record is out on July 7th, and the first single is out on May 23rd. And there's a feature film that probably will come out this year, and the new name hasn't been released yet, so I can't exactly say that now. But yeah, a lot of little things to come, and hopefully we'll have good news on another season for everyone, so we can keep the story going.
Kaelen, you rock, and I'm so fortunate I get to watch your work. And thank you for this.
Thank you, Derek.